Holy cow. Alright, I'm starting the video a little bit later than I did before, so I'm already got a good dude sweat going. I'm looking at the timer because I'm ready to get out of this thing. Alright, so things that changed my life. CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. Right, so changing the way that you speak about things to change the way you feel about it. What this looks like is like challenging cognitive distortions and being able to try to like rationalize thoughts when they become something that's triggering you in some way. All right, so very commonly, I used to always say, if something bad's going to happen, it's going to happen to me. Right, and so what I didn't realize at that time was like I was wiring my brain to focus on the negatives. Right, so it was like, oh, okay, I got a flat tire on my way to work. Yep, of course, right, because if something bad's going to happen, it's going to happen to me. Not recognizing that, I probably drank way too much the night before. I was rushing to get to work. I only slotted myself like 5 to 10 minutes to walk in the door versus like 30 minutes to get there on time and be able to like prepare for any type of complication, traffic, flat tire, vehicle trouble, any of those types of things. And so I started rationalizing a lot of these thoughts, right? And not personalizing them as much, right? Not feeling like everything was a personal attack. There is a good sheet. If you Google cognitive distortions, it will give you an outline as far as all the ones that we have, right? So like all or nothing thinking, black and white thinking, personalization, those things. And I started like studying them to where I could hear myself saying them, and it would literally like ring my ears when I would do these things. And then I would do what's called the ABCs of CBT, right? So the first thing is there's an activating event, right? So something happens, something triggers you in some way. And then the belief behind it gives you the emotional consequence of how you feel, right? So I'll give an example of, years ago, a friend of mine had a birthday party that I wasn't invited to, right? And so my first thought was like, we're not really friends, this person doesn't really care about me. So, the belief was like, I'm not going to continue my friendship with this individual. Consequence was I didn't receive their calls, and I didn't call them back for like weeks. And then they finally cornered me at my house and were like, kind of what the hell's going on? Like, we were boys, we were friends. What's the deal? Obviously, there's been a big shift, and it was like, well, you didn't invite me to your birthday party, da 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 da, and I was obviously upset about it. And then they said, well, it was a surprise birthday party that was set up for me by my family, right? And so I took the information off of Facebook and thought, wow, I'm not invited to this thing. This person really doesn't care about our friendship, right? When the reality is they weren't responsible for it. So basing things off of facts versus feelings is really critical, right? Feelings, I'm not saying they're not important, right? But they're not the truth. And our feelings can lead us astray lots of times. So the ABC model became something that like I started to practice, right? So I'm triggered by some thought, the belief system changed the way that I feel about it, and then how to be able to challenge that belief, right? So had I been like, okay, I should call them and talk to them, it would have been nipped in the bud weeks before they cornered me and talked to me about it. So CBT was something that was pretty pivotal in me changing my life. There's lots of manuals and books and that kind of stuff out there. If it's something you feel like you're struggling with, find a good CBT therapist. All right, let me know if this is helpful.